As the north wind cut through town like a whip, dust spun down Main Street, stinging the eyes of anyone standing still. Mara Hale stood under the mercantile overhang, shawl pulled tight around her boy. Sam was only 6, but he carried himself like a man already, chin up, eyes sharp, trying not to show the hunger gnaw in his belly. Still, he held tight to his mama's hand, small and warm in hers. "Ma," Sam whispered, "how much longer we wait?" "Just a while, son," Mara said, smoothing his hair though her fingers shook from the cold. Folks walked past quick, cowboys, merchants, freighters. A widow with a child wasn't much more than background noise in a town full of troubles. Then, a shadow stopped at her boots. Mara looked up. A tall man stood before her, broad-shouldered, hat brim low. His coat was patched but neat, boots dusted from the trail. He didn't leer or grin, just stood steady, like a fence post set deep. "Evenin'," he said, his voice low and plain. "Evenin'," Mara answered, chin lifted. "You from around here?" No. She wasn't, about to share her story with a stranger. He nodded like no was a full answer. "Name's Jonah Pike. I run the Broken Lantern Ranch north of here. Got cattle, goats, and a roof that mostly keeps out the rain." Sam peered up from her side, eyes curious. "Mister, you got a horse?" Jonah's mouth tugged into the smallest smile. "I got 4. One of 'em thinks he's smarter than me." Sam grinned for the first time that day. Kids know when a man speaks true. Mara's eyes narrowed. "What is it you're wantin', Mr. Pike?" "I need a hand at the ranch, a cook, someone to keep the house from going wild. My hired man breaks dishes just by looking at 'em." He paused, eyes steady as stone. "Your boy needs a home, and my bed needs you." The words struck like a hammer, plain, heavy, without polish. Mara's cheeks burned. "I don't sell myself." "I ain't." "Fine," Jonah said. "I'm asking. Come eat supper at my place. If you don't like what you see, I'll bring you back by morning. No harm done." Sam tugged her sleeve. "Ma, I'm hungry." Mara studied Jonah. His eyes were the color of river stones, hard, steady, but not cruel. His hands were strong, yet he didn't fidget or push. Finally, she nodded once. "One meal. That's all." Jonah tipped his hat, then helped them onto his wagon. His hand was warm through her glove, but there was no squeeze, no press, just a lift. The wagon rattled out of town. The mare leaned into the traces, hooves thudding soft in the dust. The wind cut sharper as the lamps of town faded behind them. They rode mostly quiet. Jonah talked some, pointing out the land, mesquite black against the horizon, a neighbor's windmill creak in a stretch of grass he meant to fence for calves. He spoke plain, never bragging. By the time stars came sharp in the sky, a glow flickered ahead. The ranch. The Broken Lantern wasn't fancy. A long barn stretched low. The house sat square, grey wood weathered but strong. A yellow cat perched on the porch rail, tail twitching like it had been waiting on them. Inside was warm with stew and skillet cornbread. Another man, tall, rope-haired, rose from a table. "Silas Reese," he said, tipping his hat. "I work horses. Plates run from me, though." Sam gave him a crooked grin. Supper was thick stew, rich with pepper. Sam ate fast like he was scared it might vanish, then slower, once he realized it wouldn't. Mara ate careful, her eyes always flicking toward Jonah. When the bowls were scraped clean, Jonah poured coffee for the grown folks, milk for Sam. He leaned back in his chair. "What can you do?" he asked. Mara set her cup down. "Cook, mend, clean. I can set a broken finger and birth a baby if need be. I can shoot true at a snake." Jonah nodded once. "That'll do." Mara walked the house after. It was plain, no woman's ribbon, no perfume bottle tucked away. Just a Bible worn soft with use, and a photo of 3 young men in union blue, one with Jonah's jawline. She turned back to him. "What taught you to speak so plain?" Jonah's eyes darkened. "I wore a badge once, spoke pretty when the law called for it, lost too much. Now I build fences, don't waste words." Sam yawned wide, head drooping against Mara's side. Her heart pulled both ways, fear on one side, hope on the other. A roof, a bed, a man who didn't lie. "All right," she whispered. Jonah gave a slow nod, like a man closing a deal he aimed to keep. Then sleep. The stew bowls were empty, and Sam leaned against his mama, eyelids heavy. Mara brushed crumbs from the table, more from habit than need. Jonah sat back in his chair, lamplight showing the scars on his knuckles. Old scars, like fence posts worn smooth by weather. "You and the boy can bed down in the front room," he said. "Plenty of quilts. You'll both stay warm." Mara narrowed her eyes. "And you?" "I've got a bed of my own," Jonah said, steady as stone. No grin, no slyness, just truth. Mara didn't answer. She was still waiting for the trick. After Sam was tucked under a quilt, the yellow cat curling at his feet like a guard, Mara stepped onto the porch. The night air was sharp, full of mesquite smoke and the far-off cry of coyotes. Jonah was already there, hat low, rifle leaning against the rail. "You keep watch every night?" she asked. "Most nights," Jonah said, his eyes never leaving the dark hills. "Not all trouble comes with warning." Mara crossed her arms. "And when trouble does come?" Jonah's voice was low. "Then I meet it at the gate, better me than the boy inside." Her throat tightened, though she kept her face calm. Silas came out, chewing a splinter of wood. "Storm's blowing in," he said. "Barn door's loose." Jonah nodded and went to tend it. That left Mara with Silas. "You don't talk much," she said. Silas grinned. "Jonah talks less, works out fine." He tilted his head toward the front room. "That boy, Sam, right? He laughed at my plate joke. Ain't heard a young'un laugh in this house for near 2 years, feels good." Mara's chest ached at that. It had been too long since she'd seen her son's shoulders loosen, even for a moment. Later, when the wind picked up and the barn door banged, Mara couldn't sleep. She rose and wandered through the house. The walls were plain but solid. A Bible sat open on the table, pages worn from use. On the mantel sat the photo she'd seen earlier. 3 young men in Union blue, one with Jonah's jaw. Jonah came back in, dusted with cold. He saw her standing there but didn't scold. "You ought to rest," he said. "I rest better when I know where I am," Mara said. Jonah studied her, then went to a chest by the wall. He pulled out a folded paper and handed it over. It was a deed, his land, signed and stamped. "You keep it honest," he said. "This place is mine clear. What I offered, you wasn't false shelter." Mara's hands trembled on the paper. Men had promised plenty before. None had ever laid proof in her palm. She gave it back careful. "Why me? There's women in town younger, prettier." Jonah set the deed aside. "Prettier don't mend shirts. Younger don't raise sons. You're strong. You've lasted where others folded. That's worth more than a pretty face." Mara felt her cheeks warm, but not from shame. From the next room, Sam stirred and whimpered. Mara rushed to him, kneeling by his side. The boy twisted in his sleep, whispering about food even in his dreams. Mara smoothed his hair, blinking hard against tears. Jonah stood in the doorway, quiet as the shadows. "You see now," Mara said softly, not looking up. "Why, I can't afford the wrong man again." Jonah's voice came steady. "Sure, then don't. Watch me. Test me. A true man won't break from being tested." Mara lifted her eyes to his. For the first time in years, she felt the ground under her feet steady up. She whispered, "We'll see." Jonah gave one slow nod. "We'll see." The storm rattled the shutters, but inside the broken lantern, the fire burned steady, holding back the dark. The morning broke cold and bright. The wind carried the smell of frost and smoke. Sam was up first, already tugging on his boots, eager to see the barn cats. Mara watched him, heart heavy and proud all at once. The boy had learned to stand tall, too young. They were just finishing biscuits when dust rose on the north road. Jonah stiffened, pushing his chair back slow. Silas came in from the yard, wiping his hands on a rag. "Riders," he said. 3 men. They came straight, no nod, no wave. Saddles creaking, dust curling around their horses' legs. The one in the middle wore a long black coat and a grin sharp as a blade. He pulled up short in the yard, making his horse rear, just to show he could. "Mara Hale!" the man called, loud enough to rattle the porch boards. Mara froze. Sam slid behind her, small hands gripping her skirt. "What do you want?" she asked, voice tight. "What's owed?" the man said, tipping his hat without respect. "Name's Zeb Calder. Your late husband Thomas signed paper with me. Debt don't die with the man." Jonah stepped to the rail, calm as if he were weighing cattle. "You got that paper?" Zeb tapped his coat pocket. "Got it right here, and the law to back it." He leaned forward, voice sharp. "Widow runs, I follow. Widow hides, I find. It's numbers. Simple." His eyes slid to Sam, sharp and greedy. "This your boy, Mara? Thomas's spit? Well, debt's growing interest, seems." Mara's face went hot, but her hands went cold. She held Sam close. Jonah's voice cut through, steady. "You're on my land, Calder, and on my land insults cost more than silver." Zeb smirked. "You aim to shoot me for words?" "If I shoot," Jonah said, his voice quiet but iron hard, "it'll be for scaring a child, and you've done that already." Silas stepped up on the porch rail, shotgun loose in his hands, though his eyes were sharp as nails. 3 riders, 3 shots, he drawled. "I could count that easy." Zeb's grin faltered, just for a flicker, but pride made him sneer. "You think marrying her fixes it? Paper follows the woman. I'll be back, and I'll want proof. A widow don't wash clean just by warm sheets. Sam clutched Mara's skirt harder. She felt him trembling against her. Jonah didn't raise his voice. He didn't move fast. He just stood there, every inch of him steady as a fence post set deep. You bring your paper. You bring your law. You bring it to town where men can read it proper. He rested, his hand on the rifle leaning by the wall. Cross my gate again before then, and you'll learn how I read. Zeb's eyes darted to Silas, then back to Jonah. He spat into the dust. Fine, I'll be back with the law. We'll see who holds the numbers. He wheeled his horse, the other two falling in behind. Dust swallowed them quick, but the echo of his words stayed like a bad smell. The yard fell quiet. Only the yellow cat stretched on the porch rail, tail twitching like nothing had happened. Sam tugged on Mara's hand, voice small. Ma, is he coming? Back? Mara knelt, pulling him close. Maybe, son, but we'll be ready. She looked up then. Jonah was still at the rail, jaw tight, eyes on the road where Zeb had gone. His voice was low when he spoke. I'll take you to the preacher today. If you stand with me, you'll wear my name. He paused, gaze steady. That way Calder won't find a widow here, he'll find a wife. Mara's heart pounded. Sam's breath was warm against her neck. She thought of nights on cold ground, of hunger that never quit, of fear that never slept, and she thought of a roof, her fire, and a man who had not lied once. She rose, chin steady. Then today, Jonah tipped his hat. Today. If you're riding with this story so far, Level Strong, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next tale. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I'd sure like to know. The wagon wheels creaked steady on the road to town. The air was sharp. The sky wide as a river turned upside down. Sam sat between his mama and Jonah, his small hands holding the edge of the seat like he was afraid of falling. Though his back was straight as a young oak, Mara held him close, her own chest tight. She'd buried one husband, carried his debt like a brand, and now here she was, riding to bind herself to another. Fear gnawed her, but hope pressed harder. Jonah didn't say much on the ride. His eyes stayed on the horizon, his jaw set like stone, but his hand rested on the reins steady. Not a twitch, not a tremble. A man who meant what he said. Town came up slow. Wooden buildings leaning against the wind, smoke curling from chimneys, a bell clanging soft over St. Mark's. The preacher was just sweeping his porch when Jonah pulled the wagon to a stop. Morning, Reverend, Jonah said, tipping his hat. The preacher looked up, blinking. Jonah Pike, didn't expect you on a Wednesday. His gaze slid to Mara and Sam, or with company. Jonah stepped down first, then offered his hand to Mara. She hesitated, then took it, letting him help her down. Sam hopped off quick, boots hitting the dirt hard. Jonah said it plain. We aim to speak vows. The preacher set his broom aside slow, his eyes softening. Come inside then. The church smelled of wood smoke and old hymn books. Sunlight slanted through dusty windows, painting the floor in gold stripes. Mara's heart beat loud in her ears. Sam clung to her skirt, wide-eyed at the hush inside. The preacher opened his book, voice steady. Marriage is a binding, not just of hands, but of lives. It's a vow to keep each other through storm and drought, feast and famine. Do you both understand? I do, Jonah said, voice deep. Sure. Mara's throat tightened. She glanced at Sam. His eyes were on her, waiting. She swallowed hard. I do. Sam tugged her hand. Ma, what's it mean? He whispered. She bent low, whispering back. It means we stop running, Sam. It means we belong. Now the preacher smiled faintly, then spoke the old words. Jonah answered each with quiet strength. When Mara's turn came, her voice shook at first, but steadied with each word. Will you keep him? The preacher asked. I will. Will you guard her? I will. Sam stood straighter, like he was trying to hold the weight of it in his small chest. When it came time to sign, Jonah took the pen and wrote his name firm. Mara's hand trembled, but she pressed her name beside his. The preacher laid his palm on the page, gentle, keeping the ink from smearing. So it is done. Outside, the bell tolled noon. Town went on as always, wagons creaking, doors slamming, men shouting at mules. But to Mara, everything sounded different. Jonah stepped close, his voice low, meant for her alone. Thank you. It wasn't the kind of thanks that made a debt. It was the kind that said, he knew what it cost her to say yes. Mara felt tears sting her eyes, but she held them back. Sam looked between them, frowning in thought. So, He's Pa now." Mara froze, not knowing what to say. Jonah knelt down, meeting the boy's eyes. "I won't ever take your father's place, son, but I'll stand where you need me, that's my word." Sam studied him long, then gave one slow nod. "All right." Jonah's mouth tipped in the smallest smile. He touched his hat brim. "Then we're agreed." The three of them stepped back into the sunlight, shadows stretching long on the dirt street. Mara felt it then, the shift. She wasn't just a widow with a boy anymore. She was part of something again. But in the back of her mind, Zeb Calder's voice lingered, like a rattler, in tall grass. They hadn't been back at the Broken Lantern a full week, before dust rose on the North Road again. Sam spotted it first, standing on the fence rail, shading his eyes. "Ma!" he called. "Riders!" Mara's chest went tight. She didn't need to ask who. Jonah stepped out from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag, his eyes narrowing as the dust cloud rolled closer. Silas came from the corral, shotgun resting easy in his arms. 3 riders again, Zeb Calder in the lead, his black coat flapping, his grin meaner than ever. But this time he wasn't alone. The sheriff rode at his side, hat pulled low, face carved with the look of a man who'd rather be anywhere else. They pulled up in the yard. Zeb's voice carried sharp. "Jonah Pike, I brought the law with me. Let's see how your vows stand against paper." Sam slid off the fence and ran to his mama, pressing close against her. Mara wrapped an arm around him, keeping her chin high, though her knees shook. Jonah stood steady at the porch rail. "Show it," he said. Zeb pulled a folded paper from his coat, holding it up like a trophy. "Thomas Hale owed me near $200. Interest doubled it. Widow here wears your name now, but the law says her debt don't wash clean." The sheriff cleared his throat. "That's true, Pike. Paper says what it says." He looked at Mara, eyes softer. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Zeb's grin widened. "So here's how it goes. 30 days, you pay every dime, or I take what pays when a stock land." His eyes slid to Sam, cruel and slow. Maybe the boy. Mara's breath caught sharp. Sam pressed tighter against her, his small hand gripping her skirt hard. Jonah's voice cut through, flat and dangerous. "You speak of taking a child again, Calder, and I'll put you in the ground where no paper reaches." For the first time, Zeb's grin twitched, but he covered it with a sneer. "You got 30 days. Tick-tock." The sheriff shifted uneasy in the saddle. "Jonah, he's right about the law. But law or no, I'll say this. Zeb, you keep off this yard till the time's up." He paused, voice hardening. "You cross this fence again before then, you'll answer to me." Zeb scowled, but he didn't push it. He snapped his reins, and the 3 of them turned back down the road, dust swallowing them up. Silas let out a long breath. $200, he muttered. "Might as well be 2,000. Mara hugged Sam close. The boy was stiff, silent, his face pale. She stroked his hair, whispering, "It's all right, son, we'll find a way." Silas's eyes stayed on the road long after the riders were gone. When he finally turned, his voice was steady. "We'll pay it, honest, but I won't sell this land to do it." Mara looked at him, fear and fire both burning in her chest. "And if we can't?" Jonah's jaw tightened. "Then Calder'll learn that not every debt's collected in dollars." Sam looked up at him then, his eyes wide, searching. Jonah knelt down, meeting the boy eye to eye. "Don't be afraid, Sam," he said, quiet. "You hear me? A man stands for his family. Calder may have paper, but I've got blood and bone. That counts more." Sam swallowed hard, then nodded. "All right." Jonah put a hand on the boy's shoulder, firm. "That's the spirit." The wind picked up across the yard, rattling the barn door. Mara held her son close, the weight of 30 days pressing down heavy on them all. But for the first time, she felt it wasn't her fight alone. The next morning, Jonah spread the deed and the paper Zeb left behind across the kitchen table. The numbers stared up at them, like a rattler coiled to strike. 200. $100, doubled with interest. Silas whistled low. "That's near all we got tied up in cattle." Mara crossed her arms. "Then we'll work like we've never worked before. I didn't marry a man to..." Fold at the first storm. Jonah looked at her long and then gave one slow nod. We'll make it. So the 30 days began. Day 1. Jonah and Silas rode south to sell a string of yearlings. The price was poor, but it put a few coins on the table. Mara baked bread and sent Sam with Silas to deliver loaves to the neighbors for nickels and dimes. Sam held his head high when he came back, jingling a single coin in his fist like it was gold. See, Ma, he said proud, I helped. Mara kissed his hair. You surely did, son. Day 7. A norther blew in, mean and sharp. The pump line froze and split. Jonah worked with a wrench till his knuckles bled. Mara carried hot water out in pails, Sam following with smaller buckets, teeth chattering but never complaining. By nightfall the water ran again. They sat by the fire too tired to speak, but a little richer in grit. Day 14. Day 14. Mara hitched the wagon herself, Sam riding beside her and hauled eggs, bread and beans to town. The schoolmarm bought 2 loaves. Her ranch wife traded wool socks for beans. Sam counted each trade out loud, learning numbers from survival itself. On the way home he asked, Ma, will it be enough? Mara kept her eyes on the road. It has to be, Sam, it has to. Day 20. Day 20. Jonah limped in from the corral with a cut across his forearm from barbed wire. Mara cleaned it with whiskey, her hands steady though, her stomach turned. Sam stood by watching every move, jaw clenched. When Jonah didn't so much as flinch, Sam whispered, Pa's tough. Jonah met Mara's eyes over the boy's head. Neither spoke, but something passed between them, an unspoken promise they were building together. Level moderate. Day 25. The house smelled of cornbread and onions. Sam was on the porch, carving a stick with Silas's old knife. His hands were clumsy, but his face was proud. I'm making a peg for the fence, Ma, he said. Every peg helps, right? Right, Mara said. Her heart swelled. Day 29. Day 29. The coins clinked in a sack on the kitchen shelf. Mara emptied it onto the table and counted slow, lips moving. Jonah sat across from her, shoulders tight. Sam leaned over, trying to help count. 183, Mara said at last. Jonah's jaw tightened. 17 short. Room went quiet. Only the wind scratching at the shutters. Sam looked from one face to the other. I'll help, he said quick. I can work, I can... Mara pulled him close. You've helped more. Hadn't you know, son? But some things ain't for your shoulders yet. Jonah pushed back from the table, face set hard. We'll find it. Come sunup. That night Sam couldn't sleep. He crept to where Jonah sat by the fire, rifle across his knees. Pa, he whispered. Jonah looked down, surprised. You won't let him take Ma, will you? Sam's small voice shook, but his eyes didn't. Jonah laid a hand on his shoulder, firm and warm. No, son. He'll have to go through me first, and that's a road he don't want. Sam nodded, jaw set, and for the first time, Mara saw her boy fall asleep in peace. The next. Dawn came fast, with Calder's 30 days burned out, like the last stick of kindling, and the road carried dust. The morning of the 30th day came grey and cold. The sky hung low, heavy as a wet blanket. Mara stood at the window, her shawl wrapped tight. Sam pressed close beside her, peering out with wide eyes. Dust rose on the north road. Riders. Jonah was already on the porch, rifle resting easy against the rail. Silas stood near the gate, shotgun hanging loose in his hands but ready. Zeb Calder rode in first, black coat snapping in the wind. The sheriff came behind him looking tired and unwilling, as if he'd rather be anywhere else but caught by duty. 2 more men rode with them, hard-eyed, hands never far from their gun belts. Mara felt Sam tremble. She laid her hand on his shoulder. Stay behind me, son. Zeb reined up sharp, spitting into the dirt. Well now, Pike, 30 days gone. Let's see if the widow's worth what you promised. Jonah's voice was calm, but it carried. You'll see. Mara stepped onto the porch, chin high, though her knees shook. She held a small sack close. Sam clutched her skirt, glaring, out at the men with more courage than his size should allow. She untied the sack and poured coins slow onto the porch rail. Silver and copper spilled in a clinking pile. Then she set down a folded paper, a bill of sale. The sheriff dismounted, came up to look. He counted careful, lips moving. Finally he nodded. 183. He looked at Mara. You're short. Zeb's grin spread like oil. Well now, ain't that a shame? Looks like I'll be taking stock. Or maybe the boy. Sam stiffened, clutching tighter. Mara's heart burned hot. Jonah's hand slid onto his rifle. Before the air could break, Mara reached into her shawl and pulled something small, wrapped in cloth. She unfolded it slow, revealing a thin gold band, her wedding ring. This was the last thing Thomas gave me, she said, voice steady though her chest ached. I kept it when we lost the house, when we lost everything else, but I'll trade it now to pay what's owed. She laid it atop the coins. The sheriff stared at it, then back at Zeb. That more than covers it. Zeb's face twisted. There's just a ring. It's gold, the sheriff said, voice firm. Weight's fair, debt's paid. He folded the paper, tucked it into his coat. You got no claim left, Calder. Zeb's eyes burned. You think this is over? Debt comes back? Women like her always owe again. That's when Jonah moved. Not fast, not wild, just steady. He stepped off the porch, took Zeb by his coat, and marched him backward clear into the dust. Then he let go so quick that Zeb stumbled, barely keeping his seat in the saddle. Jonah's voice was low, but hard as iron. You've been paid. You bring your shadow here again, Calder, and I'll escort you farther than the gate. I'll put you where no paper and no lawman will find you, you understand? The yard went quiet. Even the horses stamped uneasy. Zeb's lip curled, but he knew better than to draw. He spat again, jerking his reins. This ain't done, he muttered. Then he wheeled his horse, the others following. The sheriff lingered, touching his brim, toward Mara. Ma'am, your slate's clean. Then he rode slow after them, leaving only dust behind. Mara's knees nearly gave, but Jonah's hand was there, steady as a fence post. Sam pressed into her side, his face pale but proud. Ma, he whispered, we beat him. Mara kissed his hair, tears finally spilling. Yes, son, we did. Jonah looked from mother to boy, his voice low. He won't darken this yard, again. That's my word. And for the first time in years, Mara believed it. That's the tale, partner. If it stirred you, don't forget to subscribe for more Wild West stories here on Tony Tales Tells.